time for Dodger Baseball.
Start the party, Los Angeles! Your Dodgers have won the World Series! Beat the champ! You gotta knock him out! The Dodgers cement their dynasty!
And welcome back to Blue Dynasty Unplugged, the #1 place for Dodger fans to get the latest news on your Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm your host, Robert Medina, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, as always, Bobby Hainline, George Contillanes, and Priscilla's not here today, but hopefully she'll be stopping by shortly. We have a very special guest joining us, but before we get into it, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Malachite Media.
Modern marketing isn't built on guesswork anymore. It's built on data. Malachite Media uses intent data to reach people based on what they're searching, what they're shopping for, and even what they're watching. Helping businesses reach the right audience across Google, social media, streaming TV, and more. Start your digital growth with Malachite Media today.
All right, so today we're getting into Dodgers farm system, player development, prospect talk, a whole lot more, right? But really want to introduce the man that lives, eats, breathes statistics, minor league baseball and prospects, right? Austin Brubaker. Austin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute privilege to be here.
Appreciate that. Austin, for those that that don't know you yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell our audience a little bit more about who you are and how you got into covering Dodger prospects?
Yeah, so it's a little bit unconventional the way that I got into the whole Dodgers media kind of landscape. So where I'm at right now, I should not be a Los Angeles Dodgers fan. In fact, growing up, I was not a Los Angeles Dodgers fan. However, there were certain things in my life that happened that kind of ultimately led me into this whole Dodgers prospect type of thing. One, became a huge baseball fan in 2006, actually with the Detroit Tigers team that went to the World Series. The next year is when something really impactful happened. 2007, a minor league baseball team by the Great Lakes Loons came into town, and they were the affiliate of the Los Angeles Dodgers. And in that 2007 team, you had Kenley Jansen that was catching. You had Carlos Santana. You also had Clayton Kershaw, who took the mound opening day or one of the first days for the Great Lakes Loons, be pitching for the Great Lakes Loons, ultimately went on to have a Hall of Fame career for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Fast forward a little bit, I get back into watching a whole lot of Great Lakes Loons baseball, have a car, have money, and I just start going to all these different games. And now, granted, I no longer live in Midland, Michigan, where the Loons are. I intentionally go out and travel to all these different games, which means that while driving to all these different games, I've become very adequated with all the different prospects that come along. I was very up and close and personal when Andy Pages in 2021 was playing for Great Lakes and saw the potential that he had. I saw in 2023 the team that went to the championship that had Robleski and Dalton Rushing and Alex Freeland and Jack Dreyer and all these different players come up through the system, became closely connected to there. And because of my close connections to there, actually formed a relationship with Casey Porter, who is the host over at Dodgers Daily. He invited me onto the show, and this allowed me to be able to go into that. You combine that with my background, because I love the game of baseball, I became a statistician as my actual job. Like, that's legit what I do all the time. And you combine that with my love of baseball, everything has collided within this to where, man, I travel a lot with all these different Dodgers prospects. I go to probably 30 to 40 Loons games a year, traveling at least an hour to be able to go watch them play. I study baseball statistics pretty heavily, and I've been able to combine that in a space where I can go ahead, talk about it, break down some of the numbers, and be able to highlight all the different aspects of the Dodgers system as best as I possibly can to bring light to what is some really talented players in the system.
Awesome. I like that story because it's not something that happened intentionally, but your fandom for baseball led you to where you are now, right? And so, seeing greats like Clayton Kershaw in a setting like low or high A, right? Which is what the Great Lakes is, right? It's high A.
They were low A at the time. They're currently high A
Wow.
now. So it was even
Okay.
lower down in Clayton Kershaw's career, but still a year away from when he was going to eventually make his major league debut.
Wow. Wow. By the way, Priscilla joined us. Thanks for coming in and spending some time with us, Priscilla. I appreciate you. Just wanted to make sure I made a quick introduction. But Austin, I do have a question for you. How does your professional background in biostatistics change the way you evaluate baseball players in general?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It has to come from a stance set of objectivity whenever I'm doing analysis on players. I think oftentimes we can watch the game and make certain observations about the game. And a lot of those observations could absolutely be true. But what I like to do is be able to dive in and back up a lot of those numbers. And especially with how integrated the game of baseball is with statistics, with all sorts of different numbers, I like to be more sure than everybody else. Could be a little bit of an ego thing on my part, but I want to make sure that I am as knowledgeable as I can about each and every different subject. That means going ahead and studying, okay, which statistics are probably the best predictive or best indicators of whether a person is going to be successful or not, using some of those metrics because those metrics are what the organization is actually looking at. Diving in into some of the under the surface type of numbers, all that different aspect of being able to evaluate just about as much quantity of information as I possibly can is so necessary in the game because it is used in the game. You look at all these organizations, especially the Los Angeles Dodgers, I don't believe it's just what the eye test is. Now, the eye test can tell you a lot. It can't tell you everything. And being able to merge that with the analytics side, obviously, I lean a little bit heavy analytics. I think that creates the best organization. And I think the Los Angeles Dodgers are the best organization at being able to merge both because as an organization, I say this all the time on my show, but you just have to make good, consistent, smart decisions. And if you make those good, consistent, smart decisions backed up by the data, backed up by what you are seeing, backed up by good people, that's going to take you a long way. And that has led to the Dodgers dynasty that we're seeing right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, well said. I saw something about because you're bringing up a lot of talk about analytics and certain things that the average fan doesn't get into, right? I mean, there's so many statistics out there now, right? Nowadays in baseball that even a player from another team, which I don't know if you saw this or if anybody here saw that, Manny Machado came out and expressed his dislikeness of analytics and all of these new metrics that teams are taking a look at now. Granted, when he was asked the question and he said this, he wasn't having a good, he didn't have a good game and he hasn't had a great season this year. But, to your point, I feel that these analytics are crucial and being able to look at certain things because sometimes there are underlying problems that at first glance you're seeing performance or you see ERA and you're like, hey, this player, this pitcher's lights out, when in reality there are other things that are red flags, right? That the organization looks at.
Yeah, and really what the analytics are designed to do is to be able to help better inform you to make better decisions.
Yeah.
The data is actually being able to quantify things that perhaps previously weren't quantifiable, or perhaps put light into things that perhaps should be put into light more. One of the statistics that I use all the time is WRC plus. Part of the reason why that is important is it's because it's weighting certain measures on the baseball field that other statistics, like for example, purely batting average, doesn't. With batting average, it just counts every single hit as exactly the same. But we intuitively know, okay, a home run is better than a single. If you hit a home run, that's a run. That's going to be a lot better for the Los Angeles Dodgers if they hit a home run. How do we actually quantify that and be able to put that out there? I think you can use some of those analytics to be able to put numbers, to be able to put quantifiers that help you be able to make better decisions. Doesn't mean that they should be the sole deciding factor, as we saw with Blake Snell in 2020 Game 6, but that means that that can be used to be able to help enlighten a lot of the decisions you make. And over the course, especially of 162, they go a long way.
Yeah.
Okay. Austin, what Can you tell us which minor league numbers matter and which ones are misleading and how fans should think about player development?
Yeah, it is a fascinating question because there are so many different aspects in minor league baseball that you can go out and look at. It also can be a little bit challenging because not all of the data is completely public. So one of the main sites that I use is Baseball Savant. However, with Baseball Savant, the only minor league data that is present, that is available, is for AAA and the Florida State League. That's it. There's no high A baseball. There's no double A baseball, which means the exit velos, the pitch velos, a lot of that stuff isn't really available. So what you want to be able to do with evaluating players, it's two parts. One, obviously the numbers tell a little bit of a story, but I want to be able to look at some certain predictive or context type of numbers to be able to help evaluate that. For example, with the Pacific Coast League, notoriously a hitter-friendly environment. If you look at somebody as having a 800 OPS, that might be good in a more pitcher-friendly league like the Florida State League. However, in the Pacific Coast League, that might be close to league average, which means that you want to look for a little bit of context-neutral stats, as well as stats that might be a little bit more predictive of future success. So offensively, some of the numbers that I typically look for a lot of players, I mentioned already, WRC plus, that's going to give you 100 league average, anything above that, better than league average, anything below that, below league average. Also going to take the environment into play for the situations that they play in. I think that's a really good metric of determining their success. You also want to look for, okay, what are they doing swing and miss wise? As you go up through the minor leagues, typically the swing and miss is going to go up a little bit. You can look at strikeout percentage. That's a really good metric. However, you will kind of want to break it down even further by, okay, how much do they whiff? How much do they make contact? What is their actual swing percentage? Josue de Paula, one of the Dodgers' top prospects, one of the things that he didn't necessarily do a whole lot last year, he didn't really swing the bat a whole lot. It was 36, 37% swing percentage with his bat. That has gone up a little bit to be able to help combat that, combat some of the swinging that he has. So you're looking at some of that stuff on the offensive side. Pitching wise, I look at some predictive stuff like strikeout minus walk percentage. I think that's a really good metric. This Dodgers system is one that's heavy with pitchers that walk a lot of batters. And so you want to see a pretty good balance between those two. You want to look at perhaps ERA minus on Fangraphs. That is basically the inverse of a plus type of metric. There's a lot of these different numeric metrics. However, that can't be the sole focus of watching these minor league guys, because there's a lot of times where guys are working on stuff as they're going along. And so a large part of this isn't just the numeric side. It's also watching. What are some guys doing? Are some of the hitters being able to lay off a slider low and outside of the zone that they were chasing before? Are they tapping into a little bit more in-game power? Are they starting to pull the ball in the air a little bit more? Are they able to locate their fastball? A lot of it is in-game type of stuff that they could be working on with some of these players that go a long way to developing, which makes it difficult. It forces you to watch games as well as being able to study the numbers.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting because, what I'm hearing you say is, yes, the analytics matter, right? And it's important to look at different, I guess, parts of the analytics that are available, but also the eye test is still applies, right? In game, right? For the manager to keep an eye out for things like that or signs, and also, have that feel of the game, right? I like that context matters, right? When it comes to players, right? And, one player that has been getting, that's had a phenomenal season so far, even in spring training, is James Tibbs III. Right? I mean, the numbers are there, power's there. I know George wanted to talk a little bit more about him, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited when I see these highlights and everything. And I guess what I want to know is, your thoughts on him, Austin, and is the hype real, and should we believe what we say?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I haven't seen as much James Tibbs III. A lot of my focus is on Great Lakes. However, studying the numbers, been able to see clips here and there. Obviously, the first month of the season was incredible for James Tibbs III with the amount of home runs that he had. This kid has home run power for absolute days, and that has continued to be putting across a great season. Let's put into context what he's been able to do on the full season with some of the numbers that I had mentioned before. It's a 140 WRC plus. He's 40% better than the league average Pacific Coast League player. It's a 271 isolated power. He hits for a ton of power, draws a lot of walks. And this is one of the metrics that I want to be able to look at, especially with the AAA stats. Okay, let's look at what he's actually doing on the field, especially with splits wise. A little bit more difficult. You can look at OPS splits for some of these players, but I can look at actual batted ball quality with some of these players. So another metric that I use, sorry, I'm introducing a lot of different metrics right here. That's what I like to do. I'm going to introduce expected weighted on base average. I'll just talk briefly about weighted on base average in case somebody's not familiar. Take the exact same concept that I had talked about earlier. Home runs better than singles. Single might be slightly better than a walk. Weighted on base average just puts that weighted on the scale of an on-base percentage type of scale. So home run is going to get you a little bit better score than what a single might have. An expected weighted on base average just takes into account, okay, based on the quality of contact, what would we expect your weighted on base average to be? James Tibbs III against right-handed pitching this year has a 401 expected weighted on base average in AAA. That is great down at the minor league level. It does come with one small caveat, and this is the big thing that he's working on and why he hasn't been called up. Also, taking into account the Dodgers situation, there's a lot of swing and miss to his game. His whiff percentage overall against right-handed pitching, and it's typically going to be about this for both, is around 31 to 33%. It's a high swing and miss type of swing, which means you're getting high power, but that's going to be paired with a lot of swing and miss. Does not mean that can't work, especially if he's able to hit the ball hard pretty consistently. We've seen other hitters that have been able to be big-time power guys, but swing and miss a lot too often. That just means that there's going to be some inconsistencies to his game. So over the past month, it's been a little bit more inconsistent in his actual swing. He actually isn't barreling up fastballs as much as he had during the first 2 months of the season. He really killed fastballs first 2 months of the season. Hasn't been as much, so there perhaps could be a little bit of an adjustment that James Tibbs III is being able to make. Then we get into the conversation of, okay, what do we project going forward? What could his potential future could be for Los Angeles? Potentially, and this would have to be at earliest 2 years away, could be first base, potential replacement for Freddie Freeman. You also could be looking at, okay, what does the outfield situation look like next year? However, man, when you have guys that the organization is as excited about as Josue Paula and Mike Sirota potentially coming up through the system, it could be one of those things where, man, there might not be a whole lot of room for James Tibbs III on this Dodgers roster. That does not mean this isn't a great asset for the Dodgers to have. He's doing great against right-handed pitching, which could come into play at some point. You know, that's a strong side of platoon. 70-ish% of pitchers are right-handed that he's going to go ahead and face. That's going to have a lot of value where the Dodgers could have him in potentially some type of role. Don't know necessarily what that could be. Or he could be an absolutely a valuable asset for the Dodgers to continue to reinvest in this farm system, especially in a place where the Dodgers are missing out on 4 draft picks this week for the MLB draft. They're going to have to be able to reincorporate some of that based on the talent that they had lost with the signings of Edwin Diaz and Kyle Tucker. Perhaps somebody like James Tibbs III could be one of those players that I don't want to see him get traded for his sake, but could be traded again in order to be able to help reinvest into the future of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
That's interesting you say that because, one of the topics that we've discussed here on this show is, the trade deadline, right? And Tariq Skubal, and, that seems to be the hot topic, right? But the Dodgers have been very vocal about them not going after a starting pitcher, at least not until they know for sure what's going to happen with Glasnow, maybe waiting after the All-Star break. And they did say that, one of their focuses was going to be replenishing that farm system and adding depth, right? So like players of the Tommy Edman type, right? So, I think that's you bring up a very good point. I'd hate to see James Tibbs the
Yeah.
third go, right? I mean, look, I've since since spring training, I've been very high on this guy. I've been wanting him to, get called up. Obviously, he's not ready. I
Hmm.
I I agree with you that it's all or nothing sometimes with him, right? He's either going to hit it
Hmm.
out of the park or he's going to strike out.
Yep.
Reminds me of Yasiel Puig, right?
Mm.
Because he used to do that. Obviously not at the same level, right? But still, I think that's something that he can work through. I like the idea of him playing first base. There are other options if Freddie
Yeah.
retires, right? Is the Dodgers have a ton of options, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah, that's absolutely a good problem to be able to have because first base, you're looking at, okay, what could that be with James Tibbs III? Could that be perhaps getting a little bit more Dalton Rushing some playing time? Could that be a potential transition of Josue to Paula to be able to find a place to be able to put him? There could be other guys that could pop up. So many different things could happen between now and then, and trying to be able to find a place for James Tibbs III to be able to fit on this roster, especially with sacrificing the DH position for Shohei Ohtani, which is not a sacrifice. It's an absolute blessing because you get one of, if not the best hitter in the game of baseball, and Shohei Ohtani on the field every single day for the Los Angeles Dodgers. This is just one of the things that they're going to have to deal with, and especially with how many great outfielders that they have in the system. Holy cow, it is so loaded. I think that's going to be one of the main things that they're going to be trying to be able to figure out because right now, with the system of outfielders that they have, they can't promote anybody. Eduardo Quintero, who I love down in Great Lakes, probably cannot be promoted based on the quantity of players that are above him. Tulsa has 6 or 7 outfielders that some of them could be deserving of promotion, but they can't be called up because there's 5 outfielders in Oklahoma City that are blocking the way. So you could be looking at some movement of guys that you don't want to see moved, but could go ahead and be moved just for the sake of clearing up some development path for some of these players, as well as replenishing for the farm, which sounds crazy because the Dodgers farm system is loaded, but you're always looking to be able to add more talent into the system and continue to look, okay, who's the next best player? Because that's going to help create a system of sustained success.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tibbs is one of the louder offensive names in the system right now, but Bobby actually had a question about another player who could potentially be his long lost relative, I think, which is Elijah
Yeah.
Hainline.
Yeah, this is very near and dear to my heart because I'm Facebook friends with his father, and he's just gushing over him anytime Elijah hits a home run. I think last time, I think about a month ago, he had a grand slam, and so yeah, he posted that all
Yep.
over Facebook. Um, did you have any thoughts on him during spring training? Did he impress you? I know he impressed me with some of his defensive plays, and he did have that one home run in spring training. But yeah, how did you see him? And is there a timeline or for him to be in the major leagues anytime soon, like maybe in the next 3 years?
Yeah, first off, I got to say, I got a message about, okay, what are some of the potential topics that we'd be talking about this show? When I saw the name Elijah Hainline on there, that's not a name that I normally get when I'm talking about this. I got so excited about that. So, but
Nice.
for context, I had the chance to be able to see for the second half of last year Elijah Hainline. So I got up close, got to see a whole
Mhm.
bunch of Elijah Hainline in person. Dude, this guy's underrated within the system. He's getting overlooked by a lot of different people because of the talent
Mhm.
that he has, and especially with the productive year that he had last year. That really elevated his game, and now he's starting to be able to get into that quite a bit more. He's smooth defensively, plays shortstop, obviously, a
Mhm.
little bit of second base as well. So that up middle type of defensive positions, which there is less of that in this Dodger system than outfielders. So they're looking for more of those infield type prospects. He's a productive hitter with the bat. Currently this
Yeah.
year, it's a 121 WRC plus, 21% above league average as a hitter.
Mhm.
Very patient at the plate, 17.5% walk percentage, just incredibly patient at the plate.
Mhm.
A little bit of swing and miss, but I think he can go ahead and offset that a little bit because, man, if he's able to he's able to pull the ball quite a bit. If he can get that in the air, that's going to lead to even more home runs that he has, which it's not always the greatest home run power, but man, if you hang a slider on Elijah Hainline, he's going to absolute crush that, which I got to see on many different occasions last year for Great Lakes. The most notable one, 8th inning, down by 2 in a game that the Loons needed to win, hit a home run in front of a sellout crowd to tie it. Then the Loons ended up walking it off. Incredible electric moment. Gets super excited when he's out there, can steal bases too. He's really got a lot of different tools that you like. Timeline wise, probably will spend the whole season in the Texas League, probably spend the whole season in Tulsa. If he continues to put up a 120 WRC plus, then you can look at that and say, okay, that might be enough to be able to elevate him to Pacific Coast League, to Oklahoma City. And especially if he's able to pull the ball in the air a little bit more. I think it's been about a month, as you mentioned, since he hit his last home run. If he can get a couple more home runs on the season, steal more bases, refine all the different aspects of his game, he's going to continue to move up. And then it's if you hit, you're going to earn your way to the major league level. And so far, Elijah Hainline has hit at every level that he's been.
Awesome. He's my favorite guest so far. Anybody else?
I was going to say, his excitement is unlike any other. I love it.
Nice.
I appreciate it, guys.
Important note is Elijah is currently on the 7-day IL.
Yeah, you had to be a downer about that, didn't you?
Well, but it doesn't sound like it's too serious, and I'm excited to see more of him. I am one of those who has overlooked him until Bobby here he's been talking about him. And I took a look at some of his stats. So, I'm excited to see a little bit more of him in the years to come.
Yeah. Hainline is not a common last name. So as soon as I saw it on one of the box scores, I went, huh? There's a Hainline in the Dodger system? And I did a little research and found his dad. And I'm like, hey, we might be related. So yeah,
and it turns out Hainlines are pretty good at baseball.
So Tommy Lasorda never answered my attempted tryout letters. So yeah, oh well.
Oh man, we're gonna have to address that somehow.
That's okay.
But Hainline is still working his way through the system. But there's one player who has already reached the big leagues. And the big league spotlight, right, which is Dalton Rushing. With Rushing, the conversation has become, complicated, I guess, kind of. I don't know. I think that, with Rushing, there's been things that fans have seen. Some don't think it's a big deal. Some do. But I know that Priscilla was, I had this conversation with Priscilla, I think it was about a week ago, but when all this Dalton Rushing stuff started to really boil over after the Ohtani thing. But I think one of the things that we were talking about is his character, right? And as if this is something new. But Priscilla, what I know you had a little bit more to say about that.
Yeah, he's definitely drawing attention. I don't think there's a single baseball fanatic that hasn't touched the topic of Dalton Rushing and have an opinion in regards to whether it's good, bad, whether he's just a kid, whether it has anything to do with the fact that he's got the world on his shoulders right now with Will Smith being out. So my question to you is, what did you see in the minors when it came to Dalton Rushing, personality-wise on the field? And how do you think him going from the minors to the majors has affected his performance, if at all?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So context, I got the chance to be able to see Dalton Rushing the entirety of the 2023 season. Saw him for, I think, 2 games in 2022 during the playoffs, but really what I'm taking into account is the entirety of the 2023 season. Dalton Rushing is a competitor. There's no other way to be able to have that. And that was obvious when he stepped into the dugout at Dow Diamond. He wants to win desperately, and he's got a competitive nature. And what I call it perhaps is a overly competitive nature and especially perhaps a little bit overly critical nature of himself. This is somebody who, through his entirety of his baseball career, including the entirety of the minor leagues, went out there and had success. He was a hit every single step that he had. And it didn't matter if, okay, back when he was at college, I believe it was Henry Davis at Louisville was taking up the catcher spot. He found a way to be able to go out there and be able to get playing time, ended up getting the catcher position, hit at Louisville. When he came into the minor leagues, Great Lakes, it was through Oklahoma City, it was consistently 30 to 40 to 50% better than the league average type of hitter. He hit for power consistently. He did all these different great things well. And then you get up into the major leagues. In his first major league season, it's you're going to play 2 times a week, maybe. And I think there was a lot of struggle that he dealt with that transition, because you saw it within his swing. There was a lot of swing and miss in his game last year. And I think part of that, there is some frustration, because I know the competitive nature that Dalton Rushing has. He would go through a brick wall for his team. But a lot of that frustration, I think, was building up within himself, because, man, that's not who Dalton Rushing is. Fast forward to this year, and you get into the situation that the Los Angeles Dodgers were in, ending up in that moment with Shohei Ohtani. I think there was some frustration with what he had defensively, perhaps with the accumulation of some frustrations that he's been dealing with. And I think that ultimately led into a moment where immaturity happened for sure. And certainly throughout the minor leagues, there was times where definitely got frustrated within himself. One thing that you never took away from it, though, is that Dalton Rushing does not care about his team, nor does he not care about his teammates. He's just highly competitive in nature and super into the game, which can lead to, especially if you get into his way or perhaps get into some type of disagreement with him, he's going to be very vocal about that. But I think that leads to some of the talent that we are able to see with Dalton Rushing. And with Rush, one, be patient with this process. Don't allow one moment to completely define him as a player, because it is an incredible value for the Los Angeles Dodgers to have Dalton Rushing on this team, to have a catcher who right now is one of the better hitting catchers in the game of baseball. And even with the numbers of the swing and miss that he had last year, you could see with his pull error percentage, you could see with the power potential that he had, these type of things were in there. And now we're starting to see that flesh out with the bat. I think going through this, being able to get the coaching with some of the guidance of some of the veteran players on the staff is going to help make him a better player. It's not going to take away all the passion, all the energy that he has, but he's going to be able to focus it a little bit better. And when Dalton Rushing focuses his energy, watch out, because the baseball skill set that he has is absolutely special.
Yeah, we've seen that, right? I mean, 2 walk-offs this year so far. The kid's nails when it comes down to it, right? And he's got power. Dalton seems like the type of guy that if we play poker with him and he loses, he's flipping the table. Just because of the competitiveness, right? But go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say that 2023 team, there's a lot of those different type of players on that team. That was a team that had Freeland and Taylor Young and Justin Robleski and a lot of highly competitive guys that will do anything to be able to go out there. But when the moment came, Dalton Rushing found a way to be able to step up. I go back to that 2023 season. The Loons made it to the Midwest League Championship that year in a 3-game championship series. Dalton Rushing hit 3 home runs that series. He can step up in a lot of those big moments and be able to, especially when the team needs it, put his team on the back and be able to help lead him through a lot of those moments.
Nice. That's awesome. Because a lot of that's reassuring to hear that, this isn't a character problem per se. Especially from someone who's been watching him for so long, right? Because there's been things that have come out, right? Rumors or whatever you want to call them. And, I really feel that the Dodgers need him, right? Especially now. Some have called for him to get traded. I don't think that's a great idea. I think the kid needs a little bit more runway. And honestly, of late, he's been carrying himself well. minus the little hiccup at home plate was a few days ago or yesterday. But that's, who doesn't go through that? What's that?
That wasn't really his
I was like,
fault,
he
though,
gets
was
a
it?
pass on that one because it really didn't seem like it was something that was like brewing or, whatever.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Like with everything else, you could see it brewing and oh, he's about to like crash out or whatever you guys want to call it. But this one, it's like he made the play. It was bumped into you type baseball. It happens. And he was going about his way when he heard something and then responded to it, which is what we like in baseball. When you're willing to defend your team and what you're doing, as opposed to just making noise for no reason. So he passed with me on that one.
I thought he showed a lot of self-control on that, and
Yes.
I think that was a big sign that he is growing. So absolutely. And by the way, strong Charlie Brown T-shirt there, Priscilla. I love that T-shirt.
Thank you. It's got the number 25 on it, just FYI.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I gotta send you guys this one.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Merch.
I'll send you guys one of those.
Well, I just got my World Series championship shirt, so thank
Hey,
you.
there you go.
Hey,
Yeah.
maybe
I've got
Casey
that
will
one.
let you
Yeah.
wear it on the podcast, Austin.
Oh, I got another Los Pepinos Picantes
there you
shirt
go.
right there. So gotta be representing the Great Lakes Loons and their alternate identities.
Love that. I love that. There's another player I wanted to get into. This one's going to be fun, right? Because you actually just spoke about him recently, on the pitching side, right? There's another young arm who's already turning into a legitimate weapon this year. One that, like I just mentioned, you spoke about him on X, and that's Edgardo Henriquez, right? Now with him, when you spoke about him, you mentioned that he ranked near the top of MLB in Stuff Plus and expected weighted on base average against right-handed hitters. Now through July 6th, he had a 2.45 ERA and a .90 WHIP over 36 and 2/3 innings, I want to say, including 8 scoreless innings. And he gave the Dodgers a couple innings a few days ago, right? He's been just lights out. Everybody, fans are loving what they're seeing, and he reminds me of Bruzdar, and some have said that he is exactly what the Dodgers wanted out of Bruzdar Gratterall. What are you seeing from Edgardo, and what do the analytics tell you? Is this who he is? Has he finally grown into the player who he's going to be? Or is this something that we should kind of keep an eye on?
Yeah, so let's back up to 2024, because in 2024, Edgardo Henriquez started the season not at AAA, not at AA, not with Great Lakes in High A. He started the season with Rancho Cucamonga in Single A baseball. And by the end of the season, he was pitching in the postseason for the Los Angeles Dodgers. That was the meteoric rise. And the biggest thing with Edgardo Henriquez, you saw immediately with the fastball velo that is rare to see across the game of baseball. Man, this kid has all the talent in the world. And he spent a month in Rancho. Then he spent a month in Great Lakes, which I got to be able to see during his time in Great Lakes. Did not last long. It was a blink of an eye, and then he was gone. Up to Tulsa, then up to Oklahoma City, then up to the major leagues. The biggest thing was the consistency of his command. And that doesn't just mean being able to throw strikes. It means being able to locate a lot of your pitches well. With Edgardo Henriquez, I think we're starting to see all those different pieces together. And if all those different pieces came together, you're looking at an elite type of talent. This is something that you saw very clearly in the numbers. You mentioned Stuff Plus. The reason why Stuff Plus is important is it does not care what the actual in-game result on the field is. All it does is take into account the characteristics of the baseball that is thrown and be able to measure that, which doesn't just take into account velo. It also takes into account arm slot. It also takes into account vertical and horizontal break, being able to compare that with different type of pitches and being able to put a grade on that. And with Edgardo Henriquez, it's not just one pitch that is really good. It's not just two pitches. He currently has, and in the past has had, 5 different pitches that have been at least 114 or better in stuff plus. When you have all these different pitches that work out so well as an ability to be able to get ground balls, it only is a matter of time and only a matter of execution before you're able to put all these pieces together and become a great bullpen piece. And that's what we're starting to see with Edgardo Henriquez. Entering the season, right-handed relievers coming out of the Dodgers bullpen, because Brock Stewart was going to start the season injured, because Evan Phillips was going to start the season injured. There really was a question mark. Who is going to be that next guy up? Right-handed reliever coming into the Dodgers bullpen to be a high leverage type of guy. Would it be a Will Klein? Will Klein has turned out to be awesome. Will it be a Blake Treinen? He's dealing with some injuries and hasn't been quite as good. Will it be a Kyle Hurt or somebody like that? It turned out to be Edgardo Henriquez. Now we're seeing a guy that throws fast, that is able to get a decent amount of swing and miss. Although when the ball is hit, it's typically hit on the ground. You mentioned expected weighted on base average against right-handed hitters. Edgardo Henriquez not only has the 3rd best stuff in Major League Baseball with at least 20 innings pitched, among pitchers that have thrown, I believe it's at least 50 plate appearances, he's currently 4th in baseball, the 4th best pitcher, and generating the weakest contact against right-handed hitters with a sub 200 expected weighted on base average. I think right now it's 198. I think there's only 3 other pitchers that are better than Edgardo Henriquez as that, which means that the Los Angeles Dodgers, it is going to be impossible or nearly impossible right now, based on these numbers, for them to find somebody better than Edgardo Henriquez to trade for at the trade deadline as far as being a weapon against right-handed hitters. And when it comes to the postseason, you're looking for those platoon splits. You're looking for different matchup advantages that you could get. And right now, Edgardo Henriquez is turning into an absolute matchup advantage, especially against right-handed hitters. He's a little bit worse against lefties. They're hitting a little bit better against Edgardo. It's more of closer to a 300 expected weighted on base average. But still, when you have this type of skill set with the velo that he has, man, he's building confidence too. And you can really see it. And I think Dave Roberts is going to start putting him in a lot more high leverage situations, even as the Dodgers are going to get back Edwin Diaz, even as the Dodgers are going to continue to get a lot of these different players back. Right now, there is no optioning Edgardo Henriquez to the minor leagues because he's one of the best bullpen options that the Dodgers have.
Yeah. And one of my follow-up questions was going to be, because you mentioned, he has five different pitches and he's finally getting all of that to work together. My question was going to be, why isn't he being, I guess, considered to be a starter at some point of his career, but I guess the answer is his righty lefty splits. Would that be it?
That could be a possibility. I believe it was early in his career in Rancho, I actually believe. I'm trying to remember. He might have actually had some starting games. Yeah, back in his minor league career, actually with Rancho, during 2024, he was actually a starter. Now, Granted, that was short inning type of burst. It was 2 inning type of starts that he was getting at that time, but they started him out. I think a large part had to do with oh man, this guy's got a special talent. How can we go ahead and be able to utilize this and rapid fire him to the major leagues? But the starter be a little bit more challenging because you got to build up length. You got to worry about different pitch limits that they've got, and they've got to be able to go through a lot of these different motions. That could potentially be a possibility. However, with that, it's going to come increased tax, increased workload on him. And with as hard as he throws, I think that comes with a lot more risks. With this, when you're getting 1 or 2 inning type of burst, now you're allowing him to go all out on individual pitches, which doesn't mean he couldn't be somebody like Jacob Misiorowski. Not saying that he is Jacob Misiorowski, but he's the only one that is somewhat comparable feel-wise to Jacob Misiorowski type of there, where the Dodgers could try to go back to that. However, 2024 at the minor league level, they made that conscious decision. And I think they're just happy with having a late game weapon like Henriquez to be able to pull to at just about any time out of the bullpen, and now feel confident about that. I think that's the windup. Although you mentioned all the different pitches that he has, it definitely could be a possibility, especially as he goes into his career and finds a way to limit a little bit more hard contact against lefties. This is going to be one of the things to perhaps be able to watch, and especially if, hey, we're going to need a starter at some point, and we want to think unconventionally about that. It's either use him high leverage in the bullpen, out of the bullpen, or perhaps make a tradition. I had not thought about Enriquez starting in actually quite some time, so glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a quick question. You mentioned his confidence, and then Will Klein. And Will Klein had a performance last night that it wasn't all that great. It might have affected his confidence a little bit, and then we all know what happened the night before with Tanner Scott. What can you tell a pitcher like that who has a bad night, who is struggling, and gives up runs like that to a team like the Rockies when all the fans in the stands just expect him to just mow them down?
Yeah, it's really tough being a bullpen arm because you get one inning, or you get a lot of times you get one inning at a time. And especially when a lot of us look at stuff like ERA. ERA is a great thing. However, with bullpen type of arms, man, if you have a performance where, man, you give up 2 runs, it's going to take several different weeks to be able to help overcome that and perhaps get back to the place that you were beforehand. With somebody like a Will Klein, with that performance, one, it's not necessarily all his fault. Defense didn't really help him out with that, plain and simple. And so I think a lot of that can't be a putting all the blame on yourself. This is also one of the things that they've got to be able to go through as different pitchers, as baseball players, is being able to turn the page after a performance like that. For the defense, for somebody like Miguel Rojas, being able to turn the page from a defensive performance that was sub what they are accustomed to being able to do. I think with Will Klein, he's going to be able to do that. This is a guy who obviously came in and saved Game 3 of the World Series for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and that's going to be the biggest thing that he's going to be taken away from his career, at least to this point. But he also has turned into an absolute weapon out of the Dodgers bullpen and has been one of the main right-handed relievers. He was somebody that going into the season, I was expecting, okay, he's probably going to be that up-down guy or one of the up-down guys coming out of the bullpen. Now he's also one of these guys where, man, you can't really option him down as well. And I have no idea once Edwin Diaz is back, who's going to be the guy that they're going to be able to option down. I think that confidence that they've been able to have with him, combined with the fact that, okay, that wasn't necessarily all my fault. I think that can be okay, I can still have confidence because 90% of the time, Miguel Rojas is going to be able to turn that double play. Vast majority of the time, we're going to be able to do that. And look at what I've been able to do this season. Look at what I did in Game 3 of the World Series. I'm still that type of player, and be able to get back into that type of headspace, I think is something that he is capable and will get back to doing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, we've hit some of the names that we wanted to, talk about today. But before we get into our Call Your Shot segment, I really wanted to do a quick hit prospect questions for you. So it's just like a quick hit. We have a list of them here.
Kind of like the lightning round in a game show.
The lightning round, yeah. Okay, so I've got one for you. Give us 2 prospects that fans are not talking enough about.
Okay, not talking enough about. Okay, for this, I'm going to go with Great Lakes. For a lot of these, I'll probably go with Great Lakes. I'm going to try to avoid some of the top prospects at the end, although I'll just give a little bit of special shout out. Christian Zazueta is so good. He's so good. Pitching prospect with Great Lakes. Like you're talking about I mentioned strikeout minus walk percentage being one of the main pitching statistics I looked at. I think he's fourth in minor league baseball with at least 40 innings pitched in that metric out of 800 some. And there's another guy in Ontario, I'll just mention him briefly, Brady Smith, who's 10th in that category. Dodgers have 2 of the top 10 by strikeout minus walk percentage as starters in that category. Really good guys. Some of the other underrated guys that are part of the system, Aiden Fuller, who actually made the start for Great Lakes tonight, super underrated starting pitcher that probably a lot of Dodgers fans don't necessarily know about. He is somebody that he's got pretty good fastball velo, but really what the main part about him, his stuff is electric. Baseball America, prominent baseball publication, did an article last year. The top Dodgers pitcher by stuff plus, meaning who's grades out as having the best stuff, was Aiden Fuller, starting pitcher, and it predominantly has to do with his fastball. He's going to go out and really hammer his fastball, which might think, okay, he's just got more velo than everybody else, but it's not just the velo that's there, which is a mid-90s velo type of guy. He's also somebody that's got really high induced vertical break on his fastball. That's the exact same metric that Jack Dreyer and Alex Vesia have to be able to keep their fastball up in the zone. Aiden Fuller has that similar-ish type of IVB according to Baseball America, with better velo, which can lead to a lot more swing and miss on his fastball. Now it's all about being able to help develop his secondary pitches as well as be able to locate his fastball. And then you're talking about potentially a major league starter or potentially a bullpen weapon coming out of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Hitting wise, there's a lot of different guys you could turn to. You could go to Chase Harland, who just recently got promoted, who is one of the better third baseman prospects in the game of baseball. This year, hitting a 151 WRC plus on the season, tore up Ontario, 19 years old. It's got really good power on the season. You could go to some other guys that are part of this. Like, there's so many different guys that we can turn to. Eduardo Quintero is so good. He's a top prospect, but he's got legit 5-tool potential. There's so many different names that we could turn to.
Yeah, and there's Zach Root, right? Starting pitcher.
Oh, dude.
11 Ks. Just tearing it up.
Yeah, Zach Root is really good. He has struggled just briefly at times with giving up some hits. There was like a 3-game stretch where he gave up 20 hits in 3 games, primarily with just one start. But that all comes down to, okay, fastball velo was just a touch off, and he wasn't locating it as much. When he's able to locate that, man, that kid is absolutely dominant. Left-handed first-round pick for the Dodgers last year. They also drafted Chuck Davalin in that position, getting a lot of swing and miss. It's 34% strikeout percentage, doesn't necessarily walk a whole lot, got a lot of different secondary pitches as well as a fastball that can hit 94 to 96 typically is where his fastball is sitting. He's a really good pitcher, Zach Root. I would not be surprised if he's one of those names that gets called up to Tulsa at some point over the next couple of weeks, if not next month or so.
That's interesting. George, what's your question?
Yeah, I guess out of all the prospects that you've seen, and it sounds like you've seen a lot, who would you say has been the most improved or maybe surprised you this year so far?
Oh, this year. I was thinking of, I'll talk about last year, then we'll go ahead and talk about this year, because I had to think, okay, who's the most improved this year? Person that was most improved, or perhaps the person that I was most impressed with last year, and it's legit, Kendall George. Now, Kendall George, starting off the season for those of you who are not familiar, he's the guy who stole 100 stolen bases last year. I was actually in Lake County when he stole his 100th stolen base. Really cool moment for him. The dugout went absolutely nuts. But it's not the stolen base aspect that really impressed me with Kendall George. You go at the beginning of the season, he was a very high strikeout guy. First month of the season, he was like 30% strikeout, which with not being able to hit for a whole lot of power, and especially with relying on speed, man, you're not going to have a whole lot of success if your sole determining factor of being able to get on base is be able to get on base and then use your speed to be able to help take advantage. He turned from a 30-ish% strikeout percentage type of guy to about a 12% strikeout percentage type of guy. Really was able to get into contact. He's so good at being able to take the baseball opposite field and being able to get base hits that way. He's so good at being able to lay down bunts. There was a play last year where he was on second base. It was a ground ball to shortstop, and he scored from second base. Now, granted, he took off on the pitch, but he scored from a routine ground ball to shortstop from second base. Insane type of speed that he has. He really was able to transition into that type of player. When it comes to this year, the biggest player that has made the most improvements is a starting pitcher, not super looked into, I would say, or at least by a lot of different main publications, Brooks Auger. Brooks Auger, I got to see him in Great Lakes last year, spent the entirety of the season, really good start of the season. Stuff really wasn't biting though, and it was hit pretty hard by the rest of the league. Not a whole lot of swing and miss. Somebody that was hit quite a bit. He has completely turned his season around. The stuff seems to be biting more. He went from somebody that was probably sub 20% strikeout percentage type of guy. Granted, he's like a former 5th or 6th round pick from Mississippi State, really prominent school with somebody that had a good prospect degree. But now all of a sudden, he is starting to get a lot of swing and miss. He went from like a sub 20% strikeout percentage type of pitcher to now being a 33.5% strikeout percentage. And you can just see the confidence that he is pitching with as well. He's turning into one of the better strikeout pitchers in this league, and a team that is just filled with strikeout pitchers. Great Lakes, at the high A level of the Los Angeles Dodgers, is just filled with the ability to get strikeouts. Their strikeout percentage across all of affiliate ball is the highest among any team. Out of all 120 minor league teams, not including the Complex or Dominican Summer League or anything like that, Great Lakes Loons has the highest strikeout percentage. Brooks Auger unexpectedly is playing a massive role in that.
And also to point out, Kendall George just had a walk-off. I think it was yesterday, right? 4-hit game, walk-off win, walk-off hit. So yeah, I am excited to see more of him. And I'm going to keep an eye on it. And what was Brooke Auger, you said?
Yeah, Brooks Auger is his name. Yeah. He's a little bit older for the Midwest League. He's about 24 years old. So you could be looking at him being somebody that could get that call up to the Texas League. It's all going to be about how confident he is in his stuff, and especially with that fastball velo, it was a little bit lower 90s, I want to say, just from what I can remember last year. Is now sitting a little bit more mid 90s, 96 maybe even for Brooks Auger. If he's able to stay to that, and if he's able to, because he's been a little bit more of an in zone, not necessarily walking as much type of pitcher, if he's able to stay towards that, I think he can be somebody that can have a little bit more success. But he's been really awesome to watch this year.
Nice. Bobby, what's your question?
So, Austin, which prospect, in your opinion, other than Elijah Hainline, of course, has the highest ceiling outside of the obvious names, Elijah Hainline?
Yeah, outside of Elijah Hainline, I gotta give props to the two guys that are going to be towards the top of the system, Josue Paula and Mike Sirota. I'll just mention Josue Paula. He has taken so many different steps from what I've seen than what he had last year in Great Lakes. Like Great Lakes, he was really good. He was 35-40% better than a league average hitter with not a whole lot of strikeouts. But it wasn't something where he was tapping into his in-game power as much. It was a little bit more of he'd get singles, he'd get some doubles. Occasionally, he'd be able to hit a home run, but the ability to be able to consistently pull the ball in the air wasn't necessarily there. He's got all the offensive skills besides that, and was not necessarily swinging as much. Now he's swinging a little bit more, being a little bit more aggressive, and pulling the ball in the air, which means that he's really getting into all the different aspects that are going to help make him and mature him into being a great offensive player. The other person that's going to be fairly obvious is Mike Sirota. Mike Sirota, oh my goodness, this kid is so good. Like, this kid isn't, and not only is his on base streak, which is 69 games at this point, something ridiculous down at minor league level right now.
Yeah.
This kid is unreal with the confidence that he has in the batter's box, with the power that he has. And it's not just pull side power. You look at right center field is where a lot of his power is going to be able to come for. It's gap to gap power, home run hitting ability. He's a patient hitter at the plate, going to draw a ton of walks, confident inside the batter's box. He also has been one of, if not the very best hitter in minor league baseball. Not just from this super long on base streak that he has. Another metric, another statistic I get to throw you guys at you, weighted runs above average. This is, if you look at WRC plus, this is the cumulative aspect of WRC plus. The reason why I mentioned cumulative aspect of WRC plus is, let's say that you have two players. I've done this different observation before. Say you have two different players with a 150 WRC plus, somebody that has 50 plate appearances, somebody has 500 plate appearances. Which one has been more valuable for your team? By WRC plus, they're exactly the same. However, with a cumulative aspect, you're able to tell which one has been better. It's one with 500 different plate appearances. And if we look at the minor league baseball, Mike Sirota has been the second best player by weighted runs above average, only behind Andrew Fisher of the Milwaukee Brewers. He has been one of the very best hitters across baseball, able to hit it so very well. Like, this kid is one of those where, man, you have Josue Paula, you have Mike Sirota. I legit don't know how you can trade those guys with as much talent as they had. And that's not even including somebody like Eduardo Quintero, who legit has 5-tool potential, ability to steal bases, ability to play defense with an insane arm out in the outfield, ability to hit for power, which he's now starting to do, which Eduardo Quintero, by the way, hit a home run earlier today against Dayton. Bat to ball skills are really good. Like, those guys right there, those three that I had mentioned, which is not discounting any of the other players within the system, are just so high in their potential that they could have, to where, man, I'd love to see a Dodgers outfield with at least two of those guys out there. The tricky part is I don't know if they necessarily can do that. They could probably do one of those, but at least for the next couple of years with Kyle Tucker signing the contract, it's very likely going to be a one, or unless you have to move one of those to a different position, like mentioned earlier, potentially a Josue to Paula to be able to fit another outfielder into the mix.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have some space, right? I mean, there's rumors of Freddie potentially, calling it quits a little earlier than expected, and Muncy is, it's getting older, so there are opportunities in other positions, but who knows, right? Priscilla, what's your question?
If the Dodgers make a trade deadline move, which prospect do you think the other teams would be asking about?
Yeah. So the ones that they would be asking about, obviously the first ones you're going to ask about are the two highest prospects. That would be Sirota and DePaula. I don't think it's likely that the Dodgers are going to trade them. Perhaps a little bit more with Sirota, but I really don't think that's unlikely. Then you go a little bit down the line. Okay, what about somebody like Eduardo Quintero? I don't think the Dodgers necessarily want to move him. Then you're looking for some of the prospects that it comes down to a question, okay, is it from what other organizations want to be able to trade for? Or is it a question of, okay, perhaps these are ones that Dodgers might be a little bit more movable on? With some of the ones that the other teams might want, they're looking for potentially guys with a little bit more helium that they could see wanting to be able to help them. Somebody like, I think of Christian Josue would be a perfect example, because now he's starting to have a lot of helium, a lot of momentum. He's had 3 really good starts at Tulsa, combined with his ability to throw strikes and get a lot of swing and miss. I think he's somebody that's going to be at the top of the list for a lot of different teams in the evaluating process. And you can see him starting to move up a lot of the different rankings. Mentioned Quintero being one of those. You're looking for some of the other risers, perhaps somebody like a Chase Harlan, although he's, I would say, a little bit more bat first right now and still a young kid that's part of this mix, but still could be another name that you could be looking for. From the Dodgers perspective, though, I think what the Dodgers are going to be looking for, especially with the crop of outfielders that they have, they really need to clear up some of the logjam that they have with the outfielders, which means that they could be looking for different trades with some of the upper minors outfielders. I've said this from the moment that he was added to the 40-man roster for the Los Angeles Dodgers, because I knew the inevitability that this had. Somebody like Ryan Ward, I would love to see the Dodgers trade him. Not because I want him off the Los Angeles Dodgers, but because I think he is deserving of at least somewhat of an opportunity with another organization. And if the Dodgers have their outfielders healthy, there really isn't some type of role for him. And even if something happened, like I had mentioned on the show that I did on Monday, I think there is a non-0% chance, might be a little bit of a bold take. I think there is a non-0% chance that the Dodgers trade somebody like even like an Alex Call as part of their mix. I don't even think Ryan Ward fits that, because Ryan Ward is not a defensive center fielder. I think you need somebody that's a little bit more natural. The reason why I mentioned Alex Call potentially being part of that mix, because the Dodgers also have somebody by the name of Zach Earhart, who is doing great and is hammering against left-handed pitching, I should say, which is exactly the type of role that Alex Call is. And there's a lot of other teams that need right-handed bats at this point. But you're looking at other upper minor league outfielders, guys that could be close to eligible for the Rule 5 draft, which is something that the Dodgers take into account because they can't add all these guys to the 40-man roster. Guys like a James Tibbs could be part of that. Zach Earhart, as I had mentioned, could be part of this mix. Zaire Hope, because you have too many outfielders and he's really starting to break out again, and another team could give a really good piece for him. I think a lot of those outfielders are real, especially the outfielders in the upper minor leagues, that can allow them to be able to perhaps promote some guys that are deserving of a promotion, to be able to push them and get them to the next level. So then that can clear up some of the log jams that you have at the minor leagues, create paths of development going forward, while also, and this is the path that they could go down, potentially be able to reinvest in the farm system to where you add some guys that are pretty far away. They're going to be in the lower levels of the minor leagues, if not complex level or lower, but are going to be years away. That could be some guys that the Dodgers have identified as being talented players, like the Dodgers did with Caleb Ferguson for somebody like a Christian Zazueta, who turned out to be really good, like the Dodgers did with Gavin Lux for somebody by the name of Mike Sirota, who's really good, like the Dodgers did for countless different examples. I think you're going to be looking at that as being the focus of the Dodgers. So while other teams might want the top guys, I think these are still really valuable pieces, might even be closer to big league ready, which could be attractive to other teams that the Dodgers could perhaps be willing to be able to make a trade for.
Yeah, definitely no shortage of depth in this team, right? One last question from me. If September call-ups were tomorrow, who's getting the call?
Ooh, that's a really good question. It's also so difficult of a question because of the space that the Dodgers have on this roster and the way to be able to do that. Rosters expand by 2 for September call-up. So there's a little bit more space that the Dodgers have. However, let's take a little bit of a step back and look at this Dodgers position player group, and let's assume health or guys are able to come back healthy. Dodgers position player side. Let's say that the Dodgers don't trade Alex Call. Let's say that my idea is scrapped. And I'm not saying that will happen. I'm just saying there is a chance that could happen with the depth that the Dodgers have and with the talent, wanting to be able to get Alex Call actual playing time instead of sitting on the bench 90% of the time in Los Angeles. If that is the case, everybody comes back healthy. Kike Hernandez takes Alex Freeland's spot. Then there's no room for Alex Freeland. There's no room for Hae-Sung Kim. There's no room for really any other guys on this roster. My guess, September call-ups, one of those guys is able to come back, probably just by the way the organization has played him, probably an Alex Freeland. Also, Hae-Sung Kim has really struggled at Oklahoma City since being returned back down. That would probably be the case. Some underrated guys. You could look at upper levels of the minor leagues. Potentially, I mentioned a little bit earlier, Zach Earhart. You could be looking at James Tibbs III. The difficulty about that is, man, they don't really necessarily get a whole lot of wouldn't necessarily get a whole lot of playing time at the major league level. So how much do you want to bring guys up, start their clock early without being able to give them a whole lot of playing time? My guess is the Dodgers don't necessarily want to do that. So it could be and recalling up of somebody like a Freeland or a Kim. It could be somebody like a Jack Sawinski who's still part of the organization, or somebody like that that has a very clear, specific role. When he gets to the pitching side too, It's going to come down to a main question of, okay, who's healthy? But again, this is the funny thing, because I've been starting to look at some of the potential postseason type of rosters that the Dodgers could go ahead and put together. And this pitching staff is insane and loaded. This is part of the thing I did on the show on Monday. This is assuming Snell, Glasnow, and Edwin Diaz come back healthy, and assuming somebody like a Brock Stewart is able to stay healthy. If the postseason were to start, Dodgers would typically carry probably about 12 pitchers on the roster. Postseason, you're typically looking at 11 or 12 pitchers in the first couple of rounds. They typically don't carry all the different pitchers. They carry a lot of extra position players because they don't need all the pitchers, and you're looking for different platoon advantages in the postseason. This could be the Dodgers postseason pitching roster. I'll get this back into the potential September call-ups in just a minute. This is what the Dodgers postseason pitching roster could look like. Yamamoto, Ohtani, Snell, Glasnow, 4 starters. Robleski, Tanner Scott, Alex Vesia, Edwin Diaz, Jack Dreyer, Edgardo Henriquez, Will Klein, Brock Stewart. You know who that does not include? Does not include Emmett Sheehan. Does not include Roki Sasaki. Does not include Eric Lauer. Does not include Evan Phillips. Does not include Kyle Hurts, Blake Trinan, or River Ryan.
Yeah.
7 players who very well could play a prominent role for the Los Angeles Dodgers in the postseason if needed, assuming that those guys are healthy, could find themselves out of a postseason type of roster scenario. And you could just look at building that. The reason why I point that out is a question of, man, where is there room to be able to put those guys, even with an extra pitcher being able to add to this mix? Where would you even put those? And that's 12 guys right there. Let's say you add Evan Phillips to the mix. Let's say you want to keep an Emmett Sheehan or a Roki Sasaki around. There's really not a whole lot of room to be able to add guys. One guy that I've been a huge advocate for down in Oklahoma City, which still needs some work coming back from an injury, missed the first half of the season. Keep an eye out for Jose Rodriguez. He has insane swing and miss stuff. Whiff percentage is crazy. His changeup is one of the best swing and miss pitches in all of minor league baseball. Keep an eye out for him. Not saying that he will make the big leagues, but he's a name that's at the minor league level to keep an eye out for going forward, just with his swing and miss stuff. Nickname, actually, funnily enough, Tibu, which is a little bit shark-like, which I'm sure he felt a little bit slighted with all the Robleski sharp nickname type stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're going to have to bring you on again, because this has been very, very informative. I love talking prospects, and honestly, just getting your take on a lot of this has been very refreshing, at least for me. But Austin, like I said, thank you. This has been awesome. Before we let you go, we do want to look ahead to Friday's game, right, against Arizona. The Dodgers open a series against the Diamondbacks, and if everything lines up the way it's looking like, Ohtani is expected to take the mound on Friday. Now, it's time for one of my favorite segments. It's time to call your shot.
It's time to call your shot.
All right, so Austin, give us your prediction for the Dodgers versus Diamondbacks game 1.
Yeah, so this is something that I don't typically do a whole lot on my show. So this is something a little bit brand new for me. So I'm glad to be able to step in with you guys on this. I believe it's going to be Eduardo Rodriguez that's going to be in the mound for the Diamondbacks, correct? I think it's one of those things where, okay, left-handed starter that's going to be on the mound. Okay, what are you looking at for different matchup wise? Probably there's going to be a lot of very specific bats that are going to be in the lineup. Right-handed bats. One of them made a mistake during the game most recently. Miguel Rojas made a mistake during the game. I think he's going to be able to take revenge on that particular moment. He's either going to, I don't know whether to say he's going to have 2 hits off of Eduardo Rodriguez, or if he's going to have a home run. But thinking back to Game 7 of the World Series, even though it was against a righty and not a lefty, I'll say Miguel Rojas is able to have a home run, get some redemption from some of the mistakes that he had in that game. He's been so good against left-handed pitching this year. On this season, it's a 155 WRC plus against lefties. That's the reason why Miguel Rojas is on this roster. He's really struggled against righties, but against lefties, he's able to hit, which means that since there's a lefty on the mound, he will almost certainly be in the lineup. And since he's in the lineup, I say he's going to do some damage.
I love that. If it's a homer, real quick, if it's a homer, pull side or oppo?
Oh man, I don't know if you can do oppo anymore. I'm going to say pull side.
Okay. All right. Let's go with Priscilla. What's your shot? Call your shot.
Oh man, I'm gonna go with something way too obvious for anybody's liking. I live in Arizona. I know how much they do not like Shohei Ohtani, which makes me an even bigger fan of him. So I'm gonna call my shot with Shohei Ohtani coming and doing something crazy against the D-backs, both pitching and hitting wise.
Nice. I like that. George.
I'm going to go with, I reckon Mookie's going to go deep. I just like a left. You know, they tend to prefer a left on left, but I'm going to go left on right here. So if we can get to a left-handed pitcher, hopefully. And again, doesn't go too many oppo, but I reckon center field might get a show for that.
Okay. I like that. Mookie's been a lot better of late, right? So I definitely would like to keep seeing more of that from Mookie Betts. Bobby, what's your prediction?
Not much of a superstitious person, but I went to Walmart after work today and I had to get a few things, and the receipt at the total, the bottom said 23-23. So I got to go Kyle Tucker.
Okay.
I know he's kind of been warming up a little bit, so I don't think he had any hits in last night's game, but I think he's going to break out on Friday night against the D-backs.
Okay. All right. I like that. I'm going to go with, I'm going to agree with Priscilla on this one. I'm going to go Ohtani. The guy has just been hot these last few games, so, and I think that, they say that June Tawny is a real thing, right? Is that what it is? I think this is trickling into July this year because he had a kind of a slow June this time around. So yeah, I'm gonna go Shohei's gonna go deep. And hopefully he keeps up the good momentum on the pitching side too. So but that's all the time we have for you guys today. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode of Blue Dynasty Unplugged. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, do all of that stuff, and make sure you're following Blue Dynasty on all of our socials. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, really wherever you get your podcasts. We're aiming to bring you one new episode every week, so make sure you subscribe so you stay up to date. Austin, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you coming on. We got to do this again.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys for letting me on. One quick note, because I legit just looked this up. Miguel Rojas apparently is 7 for 10 against Edgardo Henriquez, so I'm actually feeling pretty confident about my shot that I was able to call. Legit did not know that going into this. That was just stuff that I was able to come up with. I appreciate you guys for being able to come up with these different questions for me, for giving me the platform to be able to speak and talk about each one of these guys. There's so much talent within this farm system, and any chance that I'm able to get to be able to highlight the farm system, the guys that don't necessarily get the coverage that they necessarily should. Every one of these stories is a story that should be told and is valuable. So I'm very excited to be able to have that. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Love that. I love that. And for those of you at home, don't forget, you can call your shot before every Dodgers game by visiting the Blue Dynasty on all of our social medias. Drop your prediction before the first pitch, and if you get it right, you may be highlighted on Blue Dynasty the next day. Other than that, I think that's it. I'm Robert Medina. Thanks for watching, and as always, go Dodgers.